Okay, so A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Welcome back everyone to another wonderful episode of Sisters That Walk the Path. Today I have in the studio with me Brother Taylor Benjamin, and I'm just going to pass the mic on to Brother Taylor Benjamin to briefly introduce himself to our audience. And thank you for joining us here today, Brother Taylor. And you have the mic. Kindly introduce yourself to our audience so they get to know who we have in the studio with us today.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for having me here. My name is Taylor Benjamin. I have a number of roles, but I'd say I'm a brother who belongs to the society at large. And how would I describe myself, introduce myself? I think I'd introduce myself first as a man of God, a father, um, former athlete, an advocate for the people, a brother to all. I think that's how I'd introduce myself.
Okay, so thank you so much for that brief introduction. I'm just going to say a little bit about why we have Brother Taylor in here in the studio today. So I know a lot of us parents, and I was telling some people yesterday when they were asking me questions about today's episode, I said, see, it's not just for single moms, this is for mothers, fathers. As long as you have kids, this is a place for you to be
Mhm.
because Brother Taylor has he knows his coin as far as nurturing young boys is concerned. He's a passionate advocate for youth empowerment, equity, and community development. He's also the founder of Inspire the Greats, and he addresses, gaps in the usual traditional systems by using culturally responsive mentorship to build confident and resilient youth. Like he said, he's a former international soccer player for Guyana, and he brings global perspective to leadership and skill building. His career spans education, corporate leadership, and grassroots activism. And mostly this is noticeable as graduation coach for mostly Black students in Ottawa. He also championed marginalized youth, deeply rooted in his Islamic faith, alhamdulillah, and values of compassion and service. Brad Taylor remains committed to nurturing empowered, purpose-driven young leaders through his work at ITG and BGC Ottawa. So first of all, Bratil, I'm going to ask you, what inspired you what happened? Did you just wake up one day and you just decided to like, okay, you know what? I just want to nurture young guys. Um, this is just what I want to do. Or was there like a nudge? Was there something that pushed you to decide to do this?
Um, Khadeejah, I don't think there was one defining moment in my life um, that had me set. Rather, a series of eclectic experiences that have culminated to influence the decision to initiate ITG and to really tap into part of my purpose. I do feel as if there are instances where maybe frustration with traditional systems and frameworks may have motivated me to create my own. I would definitely say that, and naturally, lack of opportunity in recognizing that those are definitely influences. But I don't think there's one defining moment, no eureka moment or an aha moment. I feel as if um, all throughout my life, I've been doing this work, formally or informally. And at one point with ITG, for example, I simply decided to pull the trigger. Maybe after a bit of frustration and maybe some turbulence in a former professional life.
Hmm. Okay, so I know I just asked this question, but I want to better frame it in a way that would, give us an insight to what this. I know you've lived so many powerful lives in one. I have personally have had conversations with you, from the soccer field to the classroom to the community. So can you take us back to that moment you knew your calling was about more than just you?
Um, Again, I can't tell you there's a one defining moment where I decided this is my calling. I think again, it's a culmination of experiences. Um, Khadijah, if I were to sit here and count my blessings, we'd
Mm.
be here forever. This podcast would lead us into the afterlife.
Okay.
Um, so it's very difficult to really identify the one defining moment or these defining moments. There are moments, um, there are very significant moments in my life that have, again, contributed to, um, again, this mosaic. Um, but I wouldn't give you one, but I can give you examples if you'd
Yeah.
like, whether it be in the
Yes, please.
football realm.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because that
one of
would be like the your journey from boyhood to manhood. Like, so if you don't mind, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So what I would say is in football,
Mm,
for instance, as a coach, something that pushed me was a lack and absence of really formalized training until I reached teenage years. Um, there is no professional football academy here when I was growing up that was associated to a professional club. There was no pipeline to professional football.
mm,
Um, in the 90s and early 2000s, football in North America and Ontario specifically was disenfranchised, very
mm,
informal. There were competitions that were sanctioned. However, there was no formal path, a
mm.
clear-cut path to reach the professional realm.
I
We
see.
knew it existed, and maybe part of the reason why ITG exists is maybe due to a recent experience where um, I had the opportunity, and I'll use the word opportunity instead of privilege, but I had the
Mm,
opportunity to work with a sports agency
mm,
um, where I was privy to marketing tactics that didn't align with my personal values.
mm,
And in witnessing their tactics, um, I felt morally conflicted,
mm,
where we're leveraging the dreams of individuals and selling the dream with little to no return. And we could identify that as a contributing factor to me wanting to
okay.
start ITG, whereas
Mm,
one of the services, which is done essentially pro bono, is assisting high level footballers and basketball players on their journey towards strategizing and advising them on their journey towards professional football. So that might be a significant moment more
mm,
recently.
yeah.
If you want me to go all the way back in time, I don't know how much time you have, Khadijah, but
Don't worry. I do have questions
sure.
that will allow you give us insights into all of that, inshallah. So I'm just gonna move to your faith and and the foundations. So how did your Islamic faith and upbringing shape the way you show up as a man, as a mentor, and a community leader? I know you were not a Muslim, right? I mean, as a child, you just reverted, but how has that, you know, shaped the way you show up as a community leader, most especially, and as a man?
Um, First off, great question. Very complex question, Khadijah. There are a lot of layers there.
Yeah.
I want to do my best to approach um, this with tact. So again, yeah, full disclosure, I didn't grow up Muslim. I was born Catholic.
Mm,
However, I did choose this religion for myself. Um, and I think it's important to note that regardless of how we come across the truth, the right answer never cared who said it.
yeah.
And I think it's important to note that there's no better framework
Mm,
for a life of leadership, purpose, kindness than that framework of Islam.
yeah. Yeah.
SubhanAllah. Um, so how did it frame?
Yeah. How did it
I
shape?
guess shape me as a
Yeah.
man.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's refined me. significantly.
mm,
Um, Whereas as a young man, I was fortunate to come into contact and have influences in my life from composed men, intelligent men.
mm.
Um,
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, the consistency wasn't there. And I think oftentimes more often than not, I would seek out um, and look to draw inspiration and structure from wherever I could, whether that be professional athletes,
Mm,
their mentality, actors in movies, um, and taking these lessons. However, what I found was oftentimes these lessons led to platitudes.
mm,
And, these platitudes are ubiquitous um, although we can apply them to our life, um, there's not so much substance.
mm,
Um, so I feel as if Islam was the perfect framework, the structure that I needed to refine. So,
mm,
and subhanAllah, Islam is perfect where if I had questions, Islam had answers and
Mashallah.
clear-cut answers. And
Alhamdulillah.
it was a beautiful solution to lack of access to individuals who may have more insight than myself.
Mm,
Who better than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
Awesome.
who to guide us
Mm,
in defining what leadership is.
yeah.
So
Mm,
I think all in all, innately, I think I had this within me. There are certain things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with,
mm,
certain temperaments, dispositions,
yeah.
but gold has to be refined.
Yeah.
And I believe Islam was allowed me to refine in
Mm,
a more effective manner because
Alhamdulillah.
um, I'm someone who craves structure, and um, it is all presented within, again, the most immaculate of deliveries, which is the Quran.
Alhamdulillah.
So I think that's maybe how Islam has shaped and allowed me to refine. I've always had it. I genuinely believe that I've always had this disposition, but Islam has allowed me to refine
You
further.
just needed that push from
Yes,
Islam.
and
Alhamdulillah.
also in addition to that,
Yeah.
no,
Mm-hmm.
there's only been one who's ever walked through this earth with perfection and without
Mm,
sin. Islam has also um, provided a degree of accountability,
Alhamdulillah.
and high achievers always seek to improve.
Yeah.
So, in referring to the message,
Mm,
um, I have been gifted the opportunity to refine myself further with clear-cut regulation and guidance.
yeah. You know what I like? I like that statement when you said you've been gifted the opportunity. It shows how deep this means to you because you're not seeing it like, oh, it's just me. It's what I love to do.
Right.
It's my thing. Rather, you're seeing it as a blessing from Allah. You're seeing
Mhm.
it as a gift from Allah, which is beautiful. Alhamdulillah. And I think that should be the mindset of every Muslim. Like everything we do is not by our might. It's when we are being guided. Especially when we are doing good, we should definitely always know that we are being guided by Allah. Alhamdulillah. Which brings me to my next question. I
Mhm.
know you've worked with parents a lot because when you work with kids, you definitely are working with parents. So, what role do parents, especially fathers or male role models, play in guiding boys towards becoming emotionally healthy men? And before you answer that question, I just want to explain some further on this question. So we see a lot of men out there. And then we wonder, especially when it comes to, having them as employees, or having them as friends, or having them as husbands. We see them and we wonder, who raised this man? Who raised them? Like, how were they raised, right? And you keep, you get to ask the question of, did he grow up with a father, or who was his father, or what kind of father did this person have? So I want to know, because some people have kids, but they don't actually understand their role as a father, right? Now, emphasis on father. So, what role do you think that fathers or role models play in guiding boys towards becoming emotionally healthy men, rather than what we mostly have today?
Uh, Well, again, thank you, Khadija. A well-crafted question, really. Um, um, I know there's a degree of mastery in interviewing, and I can see that you have it. To answer the question, I think the role of a father is to first to instill confidence and emotional regulation,
Mm,
and also detachment, and not detachment in the sense, and I know detachment carries oftentimes a negative connotation, but detachment
yeah.
in a healthy sense.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, I've listed these out in a particular fashion
Hmm.
by design. Confidence was the first, and I think the foundation begins with confidence
Hmm.
and masculine love. Um, that love built on sacrifice, right? Where it is immediately acknowledged by the recipient of that love that this love is merited.
Hmm.
Um, it is not empty. So I'd say the first step is as a father, as we go through the ages, I think is to instill the confidence in the individual. Naturally, the mother and women in general are the most um, on earth, the most important resource. Number one, they're the first teachers. Our job is to be the supporter and to encourage. But with regards to and we can go into the conversation about that. But if we were to simply focus on the fathers, I'd see that to instill confidence, and that's done multiple ways. That's done by support of the
Okay.
mother, right? So that the mother can be in, confident and comfortable in
Hmm.
applying her trade, and applying and offering or in imparting her knowledge and caring for the child and being nurturing to the child. Then
Hmm.
also instilling confidence in the child. I think that's the foundation. We require the confidence to stand up. If you've recently seen um, a baby try and get up and walk, they often look for acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So I think, again, the foundation starts with confidence.
Hmm.
Um, Next, I would say the father offers emotional regulation, and that looks
Okay.
different at different ages.
Hmm.
It,
Okay.
Emotional regulation as a toddler is different than emotional regulation as a teenager, even as an adult, as a young adult. But this
Okay.
is very important because um, there are specific gender roles for reason,
Hmm.
because biologically we're different and we are wired different. Certain chemicals run through our body that are slightly different than yours, or at least at different times,
Hmm.
and not at the same amount. Um, and this allows us to look at things from different perspectives. And it gives us the opportunity, I don't want to say privilege, but the opportunity again to address certain situations differently because we are inherently different. And I can give an example, or a general example, whereas as a mother, you're generally a nurturer, right? A source of benevolence and kindness and softness. Um, but you are inclined to comfort, ideally, in the general sense, right? I'm not speaking for every woman. Every woman's different, but in general, there's a degree of comfort there. Um, Whereas a man may not be specifically designed for comfort, or at least
Mm.
not the comfort that a baby needs at that moment in time. And by saying that, we're going to react to different events uniquely. If a
Mm.
child falls, um, a father's reaction might be different from a mother's. A mother's might be to immediately run towards the child and to help them up, whereas a father might allow the
Yeah,
child
natural
space.
reaction. Yeah.
And that's by design, and it should be that way.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a balance, and subhanAllah, there's a beautiful balance. This is why it takes a man and a woman to make a child. There's no coincidence. So
Mm.
the same way it takes two to make a child, we definitely have fathers for for certain reasons, and I'd say one of them again is that emotional regulation. Also, again, to instill composure. Um,
Well, I'm so sorry to cut you there, but that emotional regulation is something that is very that is that we are lacking in most of the men we have today.
mhm.
Do you mind explaining why that is, or if you're aware of this, do you mind explaining why it's like that? Because a lot of men will say, I mean, some men will come up with excuses and say, oh, my father was not responsible enough. But they had male figures around them growing up. They had the opportunity to be actually trained. So how is that? How big? And sometimes when we see some men without fathers in their life, they are emotionally regulated. They're intentional men, and you wonder, how did this person do it? So for me, I think the question I'm trying to ask here is sometimes I feel like it's not about I know the presence of a father is very important, yeah, but sometimes and I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but sometimes I feel like some mothers who have the right support also do a better job in raising emotionally regulated men. So do you think that the role of a father actually makes that much difference with what we have today? Because what is very common today is single mothers raising kids, and especially boys. And some don't have the opportunity to get a mentor for them. Some just put in their best to make sure that the kids are raised right. So do you think the role of a father is still that significant in the lives of these kids?
Naturally, to answer the question, it's high level, simply, yes. Um,
Hmm.
Otherwise, why else would we have a mother and father? Why would we um, place so much emphasis on marriage in the Quran, right? Why, again, I think it's, we're not animals here. So, um, as it is a simple question, a simple answer, I would say, and this might sound like a cop out, but a father is incredibly important, and it is identified in the Quran. I'd say that, number one. But you had another question.
Yeah.
Um, you actually had two other questions. One um,
But I think
being,
you should answer the first one, the one I asked first.
so by this, are we speaking about
The significance, because we've seen mothers, single mothers raising boys doing
Mhm,
extremely well, and the boys end up turning out well
mhm.
without the presence of their fathers in their lives. So do you think the weight, do you think the presence of fathers in the kid's life is still very significant?
So that's a loaded question, Khadijah. So let's unpack that. What I would say is, um, flowers grow in gardens, not in hard places.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
When we have a garden, we want the most optimal soil, fertile soil we
Hmm.
want.
Yeah.
rainwater, sunlight, a light breeze.
Mm.
We don't want foreign insects eating at the flower,
Yeah.
right? We want it to be pollinated properly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and these are the conditions. So with perfect conditions, Khadija, I would always argue that having a mother and a father present, working in tandem, in partnership, would always be superior to one parent, provided that, again, these are good parents.
Okay.
Now, naturally, there are a series of instances um, where the presence of the father is insufficient. He may be lacking skill.
Mm.
Um, he may be underprepared. He may not be a good person.
Mm.
And in that instance, maybe his absence in that child's life um, allows a more positive upbringing, but it's not to say that a masculine influence or that this upbringing can be done optimally without a masculine influence. It always requires that. So does the biological father need to be present? No, not necessarily. But I would always argue that the presence of a positive man who is well grounded, ideally in faith, um, is always more conducive to raising well-grounded um, individuals with um, an inner locus of control. So
Mm.
I would argue that, but it's not to say it's not possible.
Yeah.
My mother raised me alone, but there were positive influences in my life
Okay.
that that I drew inspiration from, that I was influenced by. And again, um, the one thing that I mentioned over here is that this composure that we speak of, um, this upbringing, this leadership, this is a skill.
Mm.
We're not born composed. We defecate on ourselves as babies and
Yeah.
we cry after every impulse, and we're slowly guided
Mm.
towards refining ourselves. We've learned to now control our bowels to some degree. We've
Okay.
learned to eat at certain times. We
Mm-hmm.
have disciplined ourselves. Um, and composure is as another skill that is imparted on us.
Okay.
So I'd say it is a skill and um, that whether however you want to look at it, fortunately, unfortunately, is e easier um, for a man to, I say a positive man, not just for a man, but for a positive man to impart on his child than it is for the mother.
Yeah. You know why I asked that question? So
Mhm.
I had like a brief chat with someone, a male friend yesterday, who saw the flyer and said, "Oh, let's stop this talk about men being very important in the child's life."
Mhm.
And I was like, "What do you mean?" It was like, "My mom raised us alone. We're three boys, one girl, and we all turned out well. And there was no uncle, there was no male friend. My mother did not get married until
Mhm.
my sister was out of I mean, remarried until my sister left the university. It was only my mom who raised us and we turned out well." So I was like, "Okay, so what's your argument?" And was I, "So now tell me how significant a father is in a child's life. Like a male does not really have to be in a child's life." And I was like, to an extent, I do agree with you, but if the it depends on the personality of the woman. But he argued that, and I was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to ask Taylor this question also to see, of course, the presence of a male for me, if you ask me, is very important in a child's life. But unfortunately, most fathers are losing that touch these days, and mothers are stepping up,
Khadija,
to
might I
that role.
interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I think that there's always an instance of a rose that grew from concrete.
Hmm.
There's always an instance um, where there is an exception. I don't want to say an exception to the rule, but there is an extraordinary case, demonstration,
Hmm.
where we witness um, abnormality. But again, going back to my original statement, flowers grow in gardens, not in hard places. I'm sure if we were to compare the percentages of children who grew up with healthy fathers in the
Hmm.
household with their mother versus single mothers who are rearing children by
Hmm.
themselves,
Hmm.
I think if we were to do percentages, we would notice that there's a higher percentage of success, significantly higher percentage of success where we have two parents in the home. It's not to say you cannot do it, it's not impossible.
Hmm.
But what's the likelihood? Why would you choose? Now, um, I say pain is inevitable and suffering is a choice, right? I
Hmm.
don't, um, there are certain circumstances that lead to separation and lead to single motherhood.
Yeah.
Um, and I've witnessed that firsthand on multiple occasions, whether it's through my mother, my sister, my aunts. This is
Hmm.
something very common in the Caribbean. However, I've also been fortunate to witness healthy families and healthy parenting dynamics
Hmm.
in some of my friends. And what I'll tell you is the success rate is much higher. Whether you want to look socioeconomically, there's other metrics in which we can measure. Your friend might be
Yeah.
correct, his father did a good job. Now, does that mean that every person needs to grow up without a father? No.
No.
And again, a loaded question, but and you asked another question also about, what is happening with society. Why do we find that it's happening more often than not now?
Yeah.
Now you can go different paths with that answer as well, Khadija. You might say, you might become a conspiracy theorist and say that it's by design, right? If we look from
Hmm.
different perspectives, you might argue that this is by design. Um, there's something called the Willie Lynch letter, and that was written during the Middle Passage or the transatlantic slave trade, and is called "Let's Build a Slave." And one of the first steps into um, creating submission in mental slavery is to remove the father
Hmm.
from
Okay.
from the nuclear family. Now, if
Hmm.
this tactic's being used, and it's still being used, but if this tactic was used by slave owners,
Hmm.
right, to control the masses, and they've had great success, wouldn't the converse be true,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
That's true.
Um, so it's not to say that it's not possible, but if we're to do percentages and the likelihood, probability, right? I think
Hmm.
that studies would agree with me where a positive influence, again, crucial caveat, the positive father, a good father,
Good.
is better
Healthy
than
one.
no
Yeah.
father because I'm sure we've also experienced men um, who were not fit to be called fathers.
Yeah. Hmm.
So it's not to say that doesn't exist as well, but with perfect circumstances or good circumstances, there's no such thing as perfect circumstance.
Yeah, so for me, I'm gonna say this is not to say some women don't also contribute to marriages ending these days, but I feel like it's very funny though, but I feel like men the lack of success and I mean success rates in a two parent household compared to a single parent household is mostly caused by men, and the end result is also, the fingers are also being pointed at men. They are the sole, starter and the, finisher of this whole problem. Unfortunately, it starts with men and it ends with men. Okay, don't let me generalize. It starts with some men and still ends with some men.
Mhm.
Anyways, so that's why we have your likes to help us, to help the single moms, to also help even parents who are struggling to nurture, with nurturing and raising right their kids, which now brings me to a question that I feel I want to believe this is very dear to your heart because from what you've said so far, I think this is like the push. So how can moms or single mothers effectively nurture leadership and identity in their boys without overcompensating or losing themselves? Most mothers are, I'm gonna take myself as an example. We are always like, we want the best because in most cases, we do not want these kids, especially these boys, to end up like their fathers. We don't want them to grow to become like their fathers because that's mostly the fact, right? So we are always like doing everything, putting every resources in place, sometimes exhausting ourselves, overwhelming ourselves with we just want them to be. So how can we effectively, raise these boys to be leaders to nurture their identity without losing ourselves?
Um, Fantastic question. Um, you know, Khadija, we could always, for almost every one of these questions, subhanAllah, we could just say Islam. Like we seek out Islam. But
Okay, let's come out of Islam now.
well, in all honesty, but to answer in a more specific
Hmm.
manner that might carry a more secular tone,
Yeah.
I might say they can first take the initiative to look beyond themselves and be
Hmm.
brave enough to seek out support.
Okay.
I think oftentimes pride or even fear, you could, depending on how you might look at it, pride or fear paralyzes us and hinders us from
Hmm.
asking for help. Maybe
Yeah.
in the past we've been condemned for asking for help.
Hmm.
Maybe in the past we didn't have access to help, and therefore we've adapted to do it ourselves because we have become accustomed, desensitized to the
Hmm.
world around us, and therefore we don't ask for help, or even seek out um, support systems. But again, and I think this is an important theme, a child is made by a mother and a father. There's two individuals have to come together to produce a child.
Hmm.
Therefore, by definition, it takes more than one person to build a healthy individual.
Hmm.
And in knowing that, I think we have to look beyond ourselves. If you do not have the means at the moment, I would say we have to look beyond ourselves to find the means as best as we can. It's not to say that if you have the financial means, we all have different circumstances that Allah has blessed us with. This is our niyyah. This is our nasib, sorry. But we have to have the niyyah. We have to have the intention.
Yeah.
And we also have to have that introspection to look at ourselves and say, I am not perfect alone. I am not two people. I am one. And that's
Hmm.
also, in addition to that, looking beyond ourselves is also giving yourself grace, saying to
Hmm.
yourself that I know that I may not be the best here, and that's okay. I may require help, and that's by design. Allah has made me a woman, Allah has made me a man.
Hmm.
So I think it's the first step is to take the initiative, to set niyat,
Hmm.
to look beyond ourselves. Again, it took two people to make that child. So there's no way that one person could be the alpha omega in all realms and all domains, right?
Yeah.
So contrary to popular belief, I think there's strength in asking for support and building a community because it takes a community to raise this child. You can't teach
Yeah.
this child from kindergarten to, university to post-secondary education. You can't do that alone. You require the individuals within society. Now, before we had formalized Western education systems, we had different ways of imparting knowledge and passing knowledge on to the youth through elders. But
Yeah.
there have always been support systems in place to raise this child, and it wasn't always their immediate family.
Yeah.
So I would say the first step would be to look beyond ourselves, to seek out support in the best way possible. And then, again, cop out here, but look to the Quran
Hmm.
because it carries the majority of the answers, if not all the answers we're looking for. Um, and then again, begin to implement these structures and frameworks that have been identified in the Quran.
Mm.
So I think that would be my answer to the question.
Yeah, so and thank you for that answer. So I want to ask, I know you said you encourage single moms to seek help. And sometimes due to shame and sometimes due to exploitation, some parents have reached out to people for help before, and people took advantage of their situation and exploit maybe the kids or even maybe the mom. So is there like a way that ITG is, supporting women in this regard? I know it's an NGO and I know it's just kicking off, but is there a way, or will there be in the future a way where, mothers, especially the vulnerable moms, can benefit, from the initiative, just a way of supporting them? Maybe they can't maybe afford the fees, or maybe they can afford a
Mhm.
part of it, or is there like any program or projects in place for that?
So ICG, again, we are constantly building. We have a couple programs that are currently running, but none specifically for that. It's not
Okay.
to say that it won't exist. The goal is to create free programming, and that requires a few things. That requires support from the community, awareness, funding itself. Um, Inshallah, in the future, I would like
Okay.
to be able to provide this service. We've already done things in schools that I wouldn't say have been directly targeted towards youth who belong to single mothers, but
Mm,
I think our framework benefits everyone and offers um, the same information and the same skills needed to be successful, whether you come from a single parent household or not.
mm,
That's all to say, in the future, I would look to create groups, whereas if there are willing individuals who want to partake, depending on the demand, we could create groups that are specific. ITG is our programming is bespoke.
mm. Okay.
Therefore, it looks different depending on the individuals we serve. In one school, our programming looks different than another school. At one community center, our program looks different than another community center, and that's by design. We need to understand that individuals are unique and there are different unique needs for these
Mm,
demographics that we're working with here. So, to answer that question, we don't have anything specifically catered towards that at the moment, but I
okay.
think with the help of the community, we could very well design, and there's programs we have coming out that would provide a beautiful proactive strategy to addressing many of those issues without specifically labeling it as a program for children with single mothers. I think that
Mhm.
it would serve the general public and offer
Yeah.
those exact same skills that they require without
Mhm.
um, immediately identifying or shaming an individual
Yeah.
uh, or excluding other individuals who don't come from single parent households who simply need the
Mhm.
same skills,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? You could come
Yeah.
from a dysfunctional family and be in the same category. So
Yeah.
we don't have anything specifically towards them. We are designing and we're implementing as we speak. But anyone is welcome. And if we get enough interest, well, Khadija, we can build anything.
Sure, of course. Nothing is impossible. And I also observed from your website that you don't just work with Black kids as well. So
No,
this is not about race. This is more about nurturing men, not not just Black boys or Black men.
100%.
Yeah.
That is by design. We understand Islam is
Hmm.
inclusive.
Yeah.
Life is
Yeah.
inclusive. Some people who have been very significant in my life did not identify as Black. Some people
Hmm.
who have massive influences on me, some were Black, some were not. Some were white, some were Eastern European, right? So this is not about race.
Yeah.
Anyone can experience hardship. And I think it's important to notice that. I think maybe society at this moment in time is, and it's not to say that there aren't unique challenges faced by individuals within the African diaspora. It's not to say that at all, but it's also to
Mm,
say that um, challenges are not exclusive to Black people. We have that. however you identify as a young man, whether you come from a Middle Eastern background or South Asian background, East Asian,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. We recognize that this is inclusive and anyone can go through hardship and then anyone could be successful.
Yeah. 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 So now, mostly
Mhm.
with the as a graduation coach for Black students,
Mhm.
there's something about young Black boys today that you wish more people truly understood. They're quick to be labeled. They're quick to be, think of almost anything negative. So it's always, Black moms are always like, you have to be different because you're already different. You're already in the minority group. So you don't want to respond, you know, with your attitude by how the community or how the world has labeled you. So is that something that you wish that, that people knew, people truly understood about Black boys?
Yes,
Hmm.
another good question.
Yeah.
There are a few. I'd say
Okay.
three main ones.
Okay.
Um,
Sure.
First, I think genius looks different in every child.
Hmm.
I think it's important to understand that our definition of genius um, may not align with the genius that we have within the home.
Hmm.
And I think it's
True.
important to recognize that
Hmm.
these children that we have, they're gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And many of them are very gifted. It is up to us to recognize these gifts and encourage them, um, regardless of how we value those gifts or how we see these gifts based off our own personal value system.
Hmm.
There are individuals, and we know this in maybe in the African diaspora, we generally push for certain career paths.
Yeah.
Um, University is often a staple in the household
Yeah.
because we have attributed value to it as the likelihood um, of having a more lucrative career path is associated with the idea of earning a degree from university. However, I feel as if it's actually shifting. But um, we have individuals who are fantastic artists, and we can be, and a man can, and I'll say this even further. I heard this this is a quote from a movie, one of my favorite movies, Man on Fire, and it was said by Christopher Walken. And a man can be an artist in anything. I'm paraphrasing, but it just depends on how good he is at it.
Yeah.
I think we can
Yeah.
be successful at anything. It just
Hmm.
depends how good you are at it. If you design baskets, you can be incredibly successful. And there's a degree of mastery. Even weaving carpets, there's certain things, there are certain lost arts, cursive calligraphy.
Hmm.
These are lost arts. So I think it's important, regardless of what the art is, regardless of the skill, I feel as if it's important to acknowledge that genius looks different in every child, and it's important to look out for that and not typecast them right off the bat.
Hmm.
The second thing I would want people to understand is, and I would agree with you, Khadijah, is we're held to a different standard, and
Yeah.
that the stakes are far higher
Yeah.
with a disproportionate reward system in this dunya. So the
Mhm.
stakes are higher with less rewards.
Yeah.
That's the truth. With young black men, you'll see this traditionally for the most part. You won't again, there are always exceptions. But if we'll look at young black men, they mature physically faster. As children, my child started walking at 10 months. I walked at 9. That was significantly faster than our neighbor's child,
Yeah.
who is of European descent and didn't walk until 1.5. Now, we're not comparing, but it's to say that black babies and black children generally develop faster. And
Hmm.
due to that, a lot of the time, there is more accountability placed on the child and more expectation, and we are
Yeah.
categorized because we might look more mature than what we are at the moment. The
Yeah.
black skin is a badge of honor, but it also carries a degree of responsibility and weight within society. So um,
Yeah.
I think that we are held to a bit of a higher standard. And with regards to black men, there are certain expectations of us that have been generally accepted by Western society. I won't say all of society, but have generally been expected by Western society, and they're constantly
Mm,
um, implied and perpetuated um, in media, where we have to live to a certain standard, whether positive or negatively. Um, and it's important to understand that Black people, again, are an eclectic mix of people. We're not just one tribe. We have West
mm,
Africans, Central Africans, East Africans. We have Caribbeans of African descent who are part of the diaspora. We have Afro-Latinos. They're very, very different. It's number one.
mm,
Um, but again, there are certain expectations placed on us, and it's important to recognize that as well. Whatever those expectations are, I don't want to go too deep into detail because we'd be here all day. And the last part and the last point I would make is that for young Black men, socioeconomic challenge takes a much greater toll on us than what people might think.
mm,
And I want to place significance and emphasis on that because this could define every relationship will ever have, and we subsequently don't have.
mm,
Because if you are Black in this country, chances are you at one point you were an immigrant, or your family immigrated here.
mm.
And
Yeah.
anyone who has ever immigrated understands there are massive challenges,
Yeah.
right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to get into a debate of the reasoning behind immigration and why we choose to leave. That's a discussion for a different time.
Okay.
But it's important to identify that most of the
Yeah.
times when you
Mm-hmm.
immigrate to a certain place,
Mm,
and you're competing in the same realm as individuals who are fifth, sixth, seventh generation,
mm.
the stakes are higher for you, and the
Yeah.
resources are not in proportion with the individuals you're competing with.
Mm,
Therefore, these socioeconomic challenges take a much greater toll, um, and they could become life-threatening,
yeah.
where these then become social determinants of health,
Mm,
and they determine access to education.
yeah.
They determine whether we receive love.
Mm. Wow.
And
That's sad.
relationships. Well, Khadijah, you're a matchmaker on the side, or maybe
Yeah.
this is you're a matchmaker. I won't say on the side, but
Yeah.
you're also a matchmaker.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
understand the financial responsibility of men in Islam.
Yeah.
Um, this is very challenging if you come from a background, or it's very challenging if you don't come
Yeah.
from a family who's been well established over generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're what you call new money. And we're required to,
Unfortunately, unfortunately, it's not how it should be, but that's what we are faced with,
and
unfortunately.
here's the thing, there's no complaints on this side, Khadija. Again, this is our naseeb. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with,
Yeah.
this is our naseeb. However, I do think it's important to outline and provide context in individuals to understand, again,
Mm,
these socioeconomic challenges take a much greater toll. Whereas your access to maybe companionship as a fifth generation Canadian, or maybe you live in a Middle Eastern country whose family's been there forever, is not the same
it's
as
not.
someone else's who is from
Yeah.
a, who currently functions in a disadvantaged financial position without the same resources. So it's important to acknowledge that, and then again, I don't want to say provide grace, but take this into consideration.
Mm. It's hard to be a black child.
Hard to be
Okay.
a human. It's hard to be a human, Khadija. It's
Well, it's
hard to be a
harder to be a
human.
black, you know. It's harder. I think for boys it's more, heartbreaking. For women, somehow, some way, you can still navigate yourself, your way. But for boys, and I remember my dad, may Allah rest his soul. I remember when we were growing up, my father, because his school lived in Germany, and he would tell us, he would say, whatever your white counterpart is doing once, you have to be ready to do it like two, three, four times because you cannot take chances. Because already, whatever effort you put in is being rubbed back in your face. So you have to make sure that you build that resilience in yourself to be able to face the world. So every time they tell you you are not enough, you go back and tell them that you're more than enough you know. And sometimes, yeah, that was a good advice when we are growing up. So we were all, in that spirit of striving really hard. I had two brothers. I have two brothers, two sisters. We're five. So, to an extent, we're all like striving, to be the best, to do all of this, especially because some of us in school in Nigeria. So
Mhm.
me as an example. So whatever I was always like, trying to be at the top of my game, doing all of that. But growing up, becoming an adult and having a family of my own, I realized it's actually, yeah, to my father in their generation, it was necessary. But for me, I don't think I'll push my child to
Mhm.
think like that anymore. For me, I think I'm just gonna tell, already know I have four boys. For me, I think
Mhm.
I'm just
Alhamdulillah.
gonna tell you, put in your best. Make sure you do what Islam wants. As a Muslim, we don't, we don't what's the word again? We always have to be the best as Muslims. So do not attach race to it. Even though
Mhm.
I sometimes remind them that you're black, you're
Mhm.
um you're Muslim, and there's always going to be that difference. You can't escape it. But at the same time, I feel like that was overemphasized for us, and I don't think we should make the same mistake of emphasizing this with our black boys or girls. At
Mhm.
this point, I don't even care about the gender. I don't care about your gender. As long as you're black, I think
Mhm.
we should allow them be themselves. We should allow them, you know, we should nurture them to evolve the way they should evolve. Whoever wants to accept them should. And if we do not want to accept them, then it's your loss. That's your
Mhm.
problem because we can't change who we are. I mean, when it comes to our skin color, our religion, we can't change who we are. We have to always stick to who we are and either accept if we want to be what society wants us to be or not. It's
Mhm.
however it works for you anyways. So just gonna ask you the next question. So
What,
what is
before we jump to that
Mhm,
question, sorry, I just
mhm,
wanted to pause. I agree with your last statement there.
yeah.
But I did want to mention, I don't want to say I do want to say this. We experience different challenges based off of how we walk through this world.
Mm,
And I want to make sure that everyone is clear that um, this is not black versus white. I won't say black youth have it harder
mm.
per se, because there are challenges that individuals experience that are unfathomable. I feel as if we have a different experience, and I think that would be a
You
more
think
accurate
so?
statement. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Um, I grew up and I was fortunate to have such a beautiful mix of ethnicities in my friends group growing up. And what I
Okay.
realized later on is many of my friends, again, they're children of war. And
Oh,
they didn't have to be black to be children of war. Some are from Bosnia, Sarajevo, some are from Cambodia, right?
mm,
Two of my best friends, one is from Bosnia, the brothers are actually from Bosnia, and one is Cambodian. And the reason why they're here is because of war. And I think some of the hardships that their families may have encountered coming to this country, if I were to compare, not that I'd like to, but um, if we were to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs based off of that structure, they have experienced tremendous challenges.
Mm.
And I don't want to downplay that. And one thing I would say is, for instance, for my Bosnian brother, who also happens to be Muslim, actually both of them are, all three of them are Muslims, actually, alhamdulillah. Um,
Alhamdulillah.
but for them, they could be experiencing incredible hardships. But in this society now, and I'm not saying they are, but they could be hypothetically, but in this society, if we come in with this perspective that Black people have it harder, naturally they become invisible. Their hardships become invisible simply because of their white skin. Whereas
Mm.
they could have witnessed atrocities, which they have.
Yeah.
Um, and does that not fall in line with what we've identified as challenges? And I think that's it's important to identify. So I don't want to make it a race thing. I think we all witness challenges. I feel there's a unique challenge when
Mm.
functioning as a black man or a black boy within society. I will say that. Is it harder? I wouldn't put that on because and then another example is we're witnessing right now in Gaza is now we're seeing Palestinian children. And I don't think they may look like us, but they may not identify as black. And this is an incredibly um, challenging situation. And again, is it now can we compare? Is it harder to be black in this instance? Well, now we could also argue what's going on in Sudan and in Congo, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mm.
I would always like to remove race from the conversations when we are comparing. I would say that we have a unique experience being black. That's what I would say, Khadija. I just
Okay.
wanted to put that make that very clear. We don't have a hard, we have a very
Yeah.
unique set. We have a very unique set of challenges as black people that others
Yeah.
may not experience on a day to day when
Hmm.
functioning within Western society. I would agree with you there.
Yeah.
I would agree with you again um, where it shouldn't be about race. But
Yeah. Yeah,
that,
I agree with you because I was gonna argue that like no, but yeah, I love the way you ended it. Yes, it's unique to us. We already
Mhm.
know that we do have those challenges, but
Mhm.
what I disagree with is raising our kids to believe that, right? Whatever
Mhm.
challenges the world has created for us, it's
Mhm.
their problem. You always have it at the back of your mind that you want to be you, you want to do you. So you want to, so you can become you, right? So yeah, I agree with that. So I think we've talked about the next question, and I'm just going to skip it anyways. So now let's look at responsibility and real conversations. So now,
Mhm.
how do we teach boys that respect isn't just about being polite, but about being, about accountability, empathy, and self-respect too? Because, and I think this is peculiar to boys in general. Uh,
Mhm.
and I will say that this does not really show in the boys until they become adults,
Mhm.
especially when they get to a stage where they want to get married or when they're already married. And
Mhm.
most complaints that come from people, even from men to men, is the lack of accountability, lack of
Mhm.
empathy. Some men live their life like they're just like passing, they're just in this world forever. Like they don't have to be accountable for anything. And sometimes I'm sorry to say, but it just feels like the brain is not there. Maybe it's there, it's not just functioning. So I don't know. So how do we teach them that respect is not just about saying sir, sir, or excuse me, sir, or ma'am, or okay, it's about being accountable for your actions and for the people that you're supposed to, be accountable for, and also a way of showing empathy and also self-respect, like respecting yourself. So how do we teach them? Because most boys we have these days, of course, I'm not saying it doesn't happen with the girls, but because we're talking about boys today, that's why I'm
Mhm.
laying emphasis on the boys that we have today. They are so entitled. being a teacher myself in the classroom, I see it daily, and I have the fear of God. Who is going to end up with this boy? Who is a woman that is going to end up being in his bondage? I know I shouldn't be thinking that way, but you can see it's right in your face. I don't know how we can teach these boys, about accountability, and empathy, self-respect and all that. But definitely
Okay.
would like to learn from you, from your experience being a coach to boys mostly. I would like to know how you are able to navigate this with the boys that you're coaching.
I think, Khadijah, it's in recognizing the origin of all accountability,
Yeah,
in teaching them about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a cop out, but again, from a secular perspective, teaching them and recognizing the origin of all accountability. From a secular perspective, we might call that inherent morality. As Muslims, we'd say that's teaching them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
hmm.
Um, and teaching them about love of God in turn results in the love of self. And we know that,
Okay. Hmm.
right? When we're accountable to God, we become accountable
Yeah.
to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
that grounding factor, whether you want to
Hmm.
call it the fear of God or the accountability to God, that
Hmm.
ensures and reassures that we adhere to these
Hmm.
guidelines that we have set out for ourselves that have been set out for us.
Hmm.
So I think it's very important to build that foundation. And,
Hmm.
for those people who don't come from a religious background, may Allah forgive me, but your God is essentially your core most value, the thing that defines everything that you do,
Hmm.
right? For us, it's Allah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I've written something, actually, if I can pull it up. I wrote something a while back to I wrote it in response to one of my students, but then I realized I quite liked how I positioned my thought. If you don't mind, I'd like to read it if I have it.
Sure, 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 please.
Okay, so I wrote this. Um, when you are not grounded in a foundation of love,
Hmm.
it is almost impossible to accept, let alone recognize the negative patterns within yourself. And if
Hmm.
you don't have anyone to draw love from, when it is inaccessible in the physical realm, God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then becomes a concept realized. When you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are in turn agreeing to honor Him.
Hmm.
From here, not only do you begin accepting love, you come to understand that sacrifice is the greatest display of love, and that your discipline slash sacrifices made to Allah are in turn the self-love needed to transcend a perilous, unloving world.
Yeah,
And
wow.
this is the catalyst to improvements needed within.
Wow,
Now,
that's deep.
now,
Mhm.
if I were to unpack that, it is essentially the love you have for God, right?
Hmm.
Um, if you do not have love, it is impossible to accept, and you can't even keep yourself accountable because you cannot recognize the patterns within yourself. Nothing's holding you accountable.
Hmm.
And oftentimes we don't have individuals to draw love from. If we grow up in a fatherless home, a motherless home, if we grow up as orphans, or we don't have good parents that didn't have love in the home, well, where do we go? This is the question. Where do we go? What happens if we don't have fathers? How did you make it, T? Right? Um, when it's inaccessible, then we seek it out.
Hmm.
And if you're so fortunate to be guided on the straight path, that you find God, right? When you accept that there's something much greater than yourself that governs everything.
Yeah.
And that there's, as a Muslim, there's certain guidelines that we must adhere to, whether you like them or not. They've been
Hmm.
created to
Yeah.
ensure that we become the best. And even if you're not Muslim and you live by Muslim principles and frameworks, you become a fantastic person
Hmm.
by default,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Even if you
Yeah.
don't accept, but you just live based off of the principles themselves,
Hmm.
you become an individual who has been elevated. Um, so when you accept it, you agree to honor these principles and to understand and recognize that there's morality beyond ourselves, that there are such things as ethics,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And from these ethics, and from honoring these and these guidelines and these regulations, right? From honoring them and disciplining ourselves enough, right? We're loving ourselves, we're sacrificing to do these things, right? Forms of worship, they're not easy. Waking up for Fajr, not every single day. On certain days, we went to bed late. It's not the
Yeah.
easiest,
Yeah. It's not.
but in doing so, um, right?
Yeah.
We begin to commit. We are committing an act of sacrifice, which is in turn a derivative of love. It is
Mm-hmm.
the purest form of love, sacrifice.
Yeah.
It means I love what I'm doing and who I'm doing this for more than myself, therefore I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And what grounds
Yeah.
that? That becomes your God. Whatever that might look like. For us, it's Allah, but for others, it might be something else. But there has to be that, for others, they call it the why. For us, it's
Yeah.
God. And I think, again, going back to what I was saying, this is the catalyst needed for accountability. You have to have something that grounds you, something that ensures you adhere to this, something that means more to you than yourself. And some
Mm-hmm.
individuals who don't identify that as God, it might be their parents, it might be their child, right? But then you have to think about what's the source and what's the origin of these people. But that's a different conversation. We're not,
Mm-hmm.
we're not trying to perform very direct forms of dawah here,
Yeah.
um, but it's important to say that that to start with this accountability, there has to be something greater than us that we attribute that are attach ourselves to. And that has
Mm.
to happen early on, and that has to happen. And we have to recognize that this thing is beyond us and that there's something more powerful and greater than us that is more important and
Yeah.
worth committing to. And when we can commit to that,
Mm.
by default, we commit to ourselves. So you asked the question, how do we teach them that respect? Well, we teach them that
Yeah.
there's something greater than themselves, and I'll use
Mm.
very yeah, I'll use an example. In the physical realm, when there's a disagreement between men, there's always the underlining risk of physical altercation and violence, right?
Okay.
Um, and at one point, one man is going to respect the other because maybe one is more skilled in violence or is willing to do certain things, right? There becomes a respect,
Skilled. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and there becomes a respect there, right? That then you
Mm.
realize there's something greater than yourselves. Therefore, to some degree, you have to submit or you have to appease or you have to remove yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? We understand that there's forces greater than ourselves in the physical realm,
Yeah.
right? And we have to
Mm.
admit defeat. Well,
Mm.
in the spiritual realm, we call that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we say that there is a realm that has far more knowledge and power than ourselves, and from that we submit to it and
Mm.
understanding that, and we acknowledge that we submit to it, and we acknowledge that it has asked certain things of us. And whether you say you respect it or you fear it, however you want to categorize it, you still follow through with those actions for the sake of it. Then you realize
Mm.
those actions have become habits and innate within you. And you do them because you want to, and you find pleasure in doing those things for the
Mm.
sake of this. Because there is reward, there's barakah in it, there's
Yeah.
blessings in it. So that's where we start with your question at the Khadijah, is that how do we teach them respect? Well, it's teaching the respect of God. There's something greater than them that we have to
Mm.
respect. And it's also gratitude because every day is that miracle. And then when they respect that, and then when they adhere to those rules, that thing that's greater than us, their rules, and
Yeah.
it becomes ours. And then that in the physical realm, oftentimes, Khadijah takes the form of a father, right? Because that thing that we respect, that is more powerful than us and is greater than us and is stronger than us in the household, the physical sense of it, right, is the
Yeah.
father. He is the leader, and he has
Yeah.
to guide us towards our faith. In Islam, the father guides towards Islam. That's why a Muslim man can marry um, a woman from another Abrahamic faith, but it's not the converse. The converse is not true.
Yeah.
So in the household, that individual and that dynamic. So I think that ties in another question, that role of the father is very, very important. And how do we
Very
teach
important.
respect? Well, we teach the love of self. And how do you teach the love of self? Well, we teach the love of God.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So what um if you can share any
Mhm.
practical way of helping boys navigate their emotions,
Mm.
especially the ones with anger, because these days we notice that most Black boys, I'll say from my experience as a teacher, I can say that let's say 75%, if I'm not wrong, of teenage boys these days are on medication just
Mhm.
because they have big emotions. They can't
Mhm.
regulate it. And if you ask me, I'll say I'm not a doctor, but I feel like the drugs that they're placed on most times are not necessary. They
Mm.
just need someone to help them,
Mhm.
navigate how to, regulate these emotions. So with your work at ITG, how do you help them regulate emotions like, anger, most especially disappointment, and all of the big emotions that they have
Mm.
to deal with?
Whether it's ITG or it's just, working in general with individuals as a coach, I work for different organizations. I'm with the
Mm,
Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa as a provincial youth outreach worker. I'm with the Ottawa Islamic Soccer League, Pinecrest Queensway Community Health Center. Wherever I am, I think it's helping them understand the nature of anger
hmm,
and how anger is essentially a fear response. It's essentially self-harm, a punishment we inflict on ourselves as a result of what others have coerced us to do.
hmm,
Now, that's from a secular perspective, um, from a religious perspective, Shaitan has no power over us. He can simply whisper
hmm.
suggestions. And I
Yeah.
think that's similar to anger, right?
Hmm,
Um, and it's also helping them understand that it is submission, it's enslavement to an idea presented by another who is not God,
hmm,
and that this individual may have power or an influence over this dunya, but not over eternity.
yeah.
And understanding, and this is where eternity comes into play. This is where the belief in God comes into play, and understanding there's something after this, because if not, we're going to make number one, and we'll recognize that this is a very volatile world. And if you have ascribed to the idea that this is the end all and this is everything there is with life, therefore I have to live for this life and this life alone, then you will
Hmm,
make unethical decisions based off of urgency and fear because you fear that this is the only life you have to live. But if you
hmm,
believe that there's something after this, that there's something greater than ourselves, well, this is a source of all morality. Therefore, we can begin to start accepting the idea of composing ourselves because uh, with the former, why would we even bother composing ourselves if we didn't believe in anything outside of ourselves? But if we
hmm,
believe that there's something greater than ourselves, a cause greater than ourselves, a place greater than where we're living, then naturally we can leverage this concept to ground ourselves as to why we might delay this reaction in anything in general. And even in this world, if we
hmm,
understand there are positive consequences, because the word consequence often carries a negative connotation, but there are positive consequences
hmm.
for delaying um, the manifestation of frustration, which is essentially anger.
Yeah.
Then we can attach ourselves to the idea of there's something better if we can compose ourselves.
Hmm,
So answering that question, it's helping them understand the nature of anger, where this is coming from, helping them understand that this is a fear response, helping them understand that by being angry, you are submitting to this individual. Do you really want to submit to this individual? Do you really want to give them that power over you? And
power. Hmm.
for the
Yeah.
most part, they don't want to. And this is why I think, Khadijah, you and I have had conversations, and at one point we were having a conversation about a particular word that is very controversial in society, and it's also leveraged to disrespect and to individuals. But if we are to react to this word, to these words, well, then we give these words power over us. Now, there's only one message that I give power over me, Khadijah, and you know which one that one is, really, right? I live my life by these words. But if I'm to give power to any other words that don't come from that same source, it's the source of benevolence,
Hmm.
right? That universal source of benevolence. If I am to attribute any other value and give that any other influence over me, well, then I failed. And it's
Hmm.
now this is a sounds I put it in more eloquent terms than it needs to be, right? But if you allow
Yeah.
this person to call you that and you react this way,
Hmm.
that you are now their slave.
Hmm.
And why would
Well,
you ever
that's
give
true.
someone, why would you ever
Yeah.
give someone that power over you and remove your autonomy, right?
Hmm.
So in less formal ways, I would lead the individual to understand the true power they have within themselves,
Hmm.
the gifts
Okay.
they have,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand the nature of anger, how it's being applied to them,
Mm-hmm.
the ramifications of what happens, and then tie that into the core values that they have, their greater why. Some of them may not have recognized that God is there. At a certain age, kids aren't having these spiritual conversations, right? But they do have certain things that they value in life. And it's able to take their most core values at that time and leverage those values and um, delay um, that reaction in understanding or delaying that action in good faith, understanding that there's something better to come should we compose ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, so someone who has been trying to join us online
Yeah.
is unable. I don't know why she can't join the Zoom link, but she asked a question
Sure.
that she's married. She has she has a boy, two girls,
Mhm.
but the husband is never involved in the
Mhm.
upbringing of the kids. And she feels strongly that I feel strongly that my girl looks up to me and I see
Mhm.
myself in her. But my
Mhm.
boy does not, okay, my older girl, but my boy does live like he doesn't even care. And I feel this is because the father is not involved. But I can't just ignore my child because he's still my child. Can you ask him how I can be a source of a good role model to him so he can grow up, so he can grow up to be a better man? Okay.
You, well, first off,
Oh my God.
very
I know a lot
courageous,
of
but
people have been looking, I'm so sorry. A lot of people are looking forward to join us on IG Live. I don't know. It's so annoying. God, because I know that's where most questions will come from. But
oh,
yeah, go
okay,
ahead.
okay.
I'm just gonna tell her anyways. Yeah.
Um, very courageous of her to put herself in a vulnerable state and ask these questions. I think is important. Full disclosure, I'm not a therapist. And I'm not a psychotherapist.
Hmm.
But I have certain experiences in life that have provided me with certain insights.
Hmm.
And the simple answer to that is provided you feel as if you're acting and you're raising them with integrity and you continue doing your best. That's
Hmm.
all. That's all anyone can ask from you. It's all our Creator asks from us. Do your best. This is
Hmm.
your nasib. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed your life path. However, it may not be optimal to you,
Hmm.
but the test is to do your absolute best in
Hmm.
spite of um, interpreted challenges, right? And there's barakah in that, there's blessings in that. So I think it's important it sounds like a very simple question and it sounds like a cliche, do your best, but it really is. And it's a reminding brothers and sisters that just because your life and or the lives of your children may not look the same as others, um, you know, it doesn't mean you're not doing enough,
Hmm.
right? And it is
Okay.
recognizing that, and in recognizing you're doing your best. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am doing my absolute best,
mm.
well, what else can we ask, Khadija?
But most times it feels like we're doing nothing, especially when you have to repeat yourselves with these
And
boys. You have to, when it becomes a routine and you just sometimes being human, as humans, we sit down, I'm like, and you're like, are we even doing anything at all? Or is there something we should be doing differently? But I know most coaches, even you've said that to me severally, like you're doing your best, you're doing your absolute best. But sometimes it feels like the best is not enough. So I think I get what this sister is coming from.
I get it, because your best becomes normalized and we become desensitized for putting forth all effort, right?
Mm, mm,
And there's no indication of, massive shift, right? Because fortunately or unfortunately, we're there every day. But just like growth, when we're growing up, we don't notice ourselves grow.
yeah.
We just end up like this. I had white hair, a whole head. I can't tell you the moment it became like this, but I looked at a photo of myself 3 years ago and I had completely black hair. And we don't witness that within ourselves. My face structure has changed, and as we grow older, it changes, but we don't recognize and we can't clearly identify, but others can. And this might speak to the value of coaching or speak to the value of having community because others can identify, right? And it's important to
Yeah.
surround ourselves with individuals who celebrate our successes. It's important to recognize that we have been successful, and a success is not defined by society. Success is defined by doing your absolute best based off of the cards that have been dealt to you. So
Mm,
it's in recognizing those things, and maybe if you're struggling, Khadija, for instance, if you're struggling to acknowledge your efforts, then maybe it's time to put yourself in a circle where we can gain perspective. And
mm,
one of the best, for me, what provided me amazing perspective in terms of what parenting could look like and what it might look like and how it is sometimes is working in group homes. Some of these
mm,
individuals are very unfortunate where their parents may not have treated them the best. Some of their parents have committed crimes,
mm,
right? So it's also important to understand the scale and the spectrum, right? And exposing ourselves to us.
mm,
It's the same goes with gratitude, right? Sometimes we're not grateful. It's like, wow, we should be having filet mignon tonight, but again, it's it's
mm,
it's ground beef. But um, or we should be having you know, some sort of gourmet meal or at least I see other individuals having gourmet meal, and tonight we're having canned sardines.
mm,
But um, it's understanding that there is a spectrum here, and there's people who are doing far worse.
mm. Yeah.
And understanding that and understanding the context of what you've actually done within your lifespan, how much effort you put in based off of the resources you have access to. When we can remove ourselves from that and look back at ourselves, then we can say, no, I am doing my best. I'm trying my best. And we're all victim of this sometimes as parents, Khadija. Sometimes we look back at ourselves and like, am I doing everything I can for this child? I look at my own child and sometimes saying, like, am I cheating you of something? We all go
Mm,
through it. Am I cheating you of this because this other kid has it?
mm.
But
Wow.
when you really look and you sit down, you begin to express gratitude, that's when we actually recognize, oh wow, okay, I am doing well. You are doing
Alhamdulillah.
well, Khadija. Alhamdulillah. Like it could always be worse. It could always be better, but it could always be worse. And it's an understanding that we can, and that, and also looking at ourselves, really that introspection and asking that question, am I doing
Mm,
my best? And if you can answer that question honestly and say yes, well
mm.
then continue going, sister. More power to you.
How about in a situation where you can't answer the question? Because sometimes that happens. Does that make you a terrible mom or what?
No, no, you can't say I didn't do my best today. It's like you can't function at 100% every single day. We're humans,
Mm,
right? Some days
yeah.
100% is like your 100% of the effort that you have, right? If you wake up and you only had You're 100% off of eating, 3 leaves of spinach is going to be different than eating, a 28-ounce steak, right?
Yeah.
Some days your best effort is based off of what's been provided to you for the day
Mm.
and
Yeah.
what energy's been provided in the situation that you're in. But if you can look at that and say, I've made the best decisions I can, then yeah.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah.
to say that you have to work at full capacity every single day and thing. It's the consistency, it's the body of your work, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And it's also to give yourself grace. So, um, are you doing your best? Today, did you try your best or, the best of what I could do? Perfect. If you can answer that
Yeah.
question, then you're in good shape. And if you can't, then it might be also to surround yourself with individuals who will celebrate you, provided that you're being accountable, but individuals who celebrate you as well.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the bridge between home and society. So what
Mhm.
habits or values at home sets up boys, set up for boys, boys for success in this world? I know faith is number one, so let's take it outside faith. What are the values that one can set boys up for success with?
Well, I think it's hard. Like again, faith is one. If you're not a religious person, it's morality, right? These virtues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about these values, then it's hard to remove these from faith because they're baked into our
Yeah.
faith, right? Into our deen, into what makes up our class, what makes up being a Muslim. But outside of that, if we use a more secular perspective, you could say it's integrity, resilience,
Yeah.
confidence.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that falls under faith, right? As a Muslim, at least, we have the most perfect of religions. It's actually in there, and they
Yeah.
have Islamic words for these words like tawakkul or good character, right? So these
Mm.
things. But if you want to use layman's terms, integrity, resilience, confidence, I think those are the values that we need to instill at home.
Mm.
And there are also habits,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, these
Yeah.
habits are also Islamic by nature, but they go sometimes unrecognized by other individuals. But again, persistence, goal setting,
Yeah.
introspection, self-reflection, that evaluation we have on ourselves.
Mm.
Reading, massive. That's where we gain information from, and that's where introspection often happens. Prayer, right?
Yeah.
Um, and one of the others is self-talk, actually. That's something that's big that a lot of people don't do. Self-talk. And that's seen in high performers. And there's studies about this and the effect of self-talk, visualization.
Mm.
Visualization could be likened with dua, right?
Interesting. Okay.
So there's, to use certain terms, I'll use those ones, but we know that um they're one and the same under the umbrella of Islam.
Okay. All right. So, you as ITG, how have you built, how do you plan on building strong relationship with, partnership with parents, between parents, schools, and communities, to raise well-rounded young men?
Um, I think it's in offering them meaningful. So now raising young men within ITG or just within schools? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so within schools and society at large, I think it's
And even parents,
hmm,
how do you work with them?
I and I think maybe you can attest to this as well, Khadijah, but it's offering them meaningful positions as stakeholders
Mm,
in their child's learning and upbringing.
mm,
I think that's the first part. If we look at it as a child as a business, right? You are
yeah.
a stakeholder. But
Mm-hmm.
in Western society, we send our children off to school and we go, do your thing. And then they come back to us 8 hours later,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
indoctrinated with certain beliefs
Mm-hmm.
that may not align with our own. And I think it's offering them the parents again those meaningful positions in their
Yeah.
children's learning, allowing first off the children to drive the conversation, um, really, and drive their learning. And then have that open line of communication between parents, that respectful. I want to put that crucial caveat there, a respectful open line of communication. There is a
Mm.
hierarchy in how these things work, right? You can't just say whatever you want to mom or dad, but
Yeah.
a respectful line of communication and understanding there's a way we must frame our language, um, so that we can collaborate. And then yeah, at one point at one point in society, we had something called liberal arts. It means something completely different now. It's something completely different now, but the liberal arts before was simply a form of education that provided youth and promoted the art of um, critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
Not It wasn't coercive indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that number one, we need to allow parents to be part of that growth. We include them in the learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not just assigning things to the youth. We're actually collaborating with the parents, right? And their values, right? Because this is, in fact, their offspring, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you've been blessed with the opportunity to get paid to teach them, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's offering that, and then it's also having youth drive that conversation of what do I want to learn? Because not all youth are the same. So it's allowing that, having that conversation, and then that feedback loop, connecting that to the parent, having the child being able to communicate we need to be able to, I don't say constantly challenge authority, but we need to be able to challenge authority and question. We need to have conversations, right? And then we need to
Yeah.
have respectful conversations. So tying them together and triaging between the institution, if you will, or the teachers, the parents, and the children, right? So we're not we're not promoting, sorry, coercive indoctrination.
So would you say it has been really difficult working with parents, community, or schools? Or have you ever had any, challenges working with kids? Was there ever a situation where kids say no, they don't want to work with you? And in that situation, what did you do?
Well, put it this way, I'm not perfect. And the other thing is I can't be the end all be all for individuals. I know that I have limits, and I know that I might not be everyone's cup of tea. I have a certain approach, and I always joke around it, like, if you either love me or you don't, but there's no in between with me. And those who gravitate towards me, I can do work with. But one of the things I don't do is again, um, I don't coerce anyone to work with me. I don't try and compel individuals to work with me. It's not my job. The best I can do is be myself. And if that speaks to you, and if you align with some of my values, then we can work. But there have been individuals who've chosen they don't want to work. And I don't take any personal offense to that. It's understanding that I might not even be the best individual to serve you. There's individuals who work with young Black females, and clearly I'm not a young Black female. And better to speak to certain lived experiences when you need support in certain areas, I can't have certain conversations. And it's in recognizing our limitations there. So yes, there have been instances where I didn't work with individuals. Um, yes, there are instances where we recognize that maybe our values don't align.
Mm,
But it's all to say that this is based off the individual. That's the person we're prioritizing in this work. So if I'm not serving you, I'm not going to push, um,
mm.
right? Because then that becomes performative and it becomes for monetary gain, and that's not what ITG is about. We're about holistic support, um, confidence building, um, to transcend these afflictions within society.
Mm.
These, yeah.
Wow. So I know you also work with female like girls.
Mhm.
How easy has that been so far? Being a male coach. How easy?
We'll put it this way. Um, it's understanding that it's very different in working with young women. And
Mm,
that's very important to set certain boundaries right out of the gate and understand your position of influence as a male. Specifically as a Muslim, there has to be a degree of separation, and there has to be a degree of distance, right? When working with them, um, for a number of reasons. But to answer your question, girls are awesome, Khadijah. I'm a girl dad, and girls are amazing. They're very,
mm.
very, very receptive. Um,
Alhamdulillah.
uh, they're very receptive. They provide beautiful perspectives. They allow you to refine even further because they provide a certain feminine, yeah, again, a feminine perspective, um, which requires a degree of tact and sensitivity
Mm,
that could easily be overlooked.
mm,
Um, and then it ensures that we have to refine our skills and our approach.
mm.
So girls are women in general are fantastic to work with, but different different
When there
relationships.
is a but, there is a problem.
No, I don't say but there's different is a different dynamic. That's what I'd say,
I
Khadijah.
see.
Because there
Okay.
has to be a degree, for at least me personally, there is a degree of understanding. And
Mm,
that's also one of the reasons why ITG has brought in female partners and stakeholders in our business because we want to be able to support. Yes, there needs to be a masculine influence, but there has to be a
mm.
feminine as well. And it's also understanding that again, we are not the end all be all as men.
Yeah.
But if you ask my personal experience, girls are awesome. Like
Mm,
amazing, amazing mentees. Amazing. One of mine has been so successful, and I've seen her from I think from the age of 10. I think she's maybe
mm,
23 now. Um, go from amateur football to playing professional throughout university, and I've been very privileged to witness that and be a part of that journey. So it's like it's very fulfilling, right?
mm.
And I see bits and
Alhamdulillah.
parts of my daughter in each one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So how has introducing sports into your coaching style help your mentees?
Um,
Because
physical
not
activity.
every child will like sports, right?
No, it's not just
So,
sport, but
yeah. So, I know in most cases you approach coaching through the lens of sports. So how has that really helped the people you mentor?
I want to make a statement. I want to make it. I don't usually approach it through the lens of sport. I actually
Oh,
approach it.
okay.
I approach it through the lens of empathy.
Oh, okay.
Empathy and appreciation. Like I'm grateful that I'm allowed the opportunity to work with this individual. This is their life path. They might become someone incredibly great.
Hmm.
So I approach it from that perspective. I do, however, use the vehicle of sport to impart certain messaging and skills,
Hmm.
right? And I think sport is a fantastic vehicle that allows us to transcend
Okay.
hardships, that allows us to recognize challenges because it is a microcosm of life.
Hmm.
And we can draw parallels between sport and life in general. You know,
Okay.
this dunya is this life that we're living, again, it will end at one point. Same thing with the game,
Yeah.
right? There's certain stipulations, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it so dynamic, right?
Hmm.
Because if we were given
Hmm.
everything and there weren't any stipulations, well, it might be a bit boring, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So we do approach it through sport, um, but I wouldn't say that it's through the lens of sport.
Okay.
Now, your
So
initial question, sorry,
yeah.
sorry to go back. Your initial question, Khadijah,
Yeah.
I wanna address that. So what is the initial question though? It's if we were to remove the sport from it,
Yeah.
um, if you could restate it, if you wouldn't mind.
Like I asked, I think my question was how has the sports,
Hmm.
really impacted how you mentor your
Okay. So if we are to leverage sport as the vehicle,
hmm
I think it's important to recognize that physical activity, not just sport. Physical activity is it's
Okay.
cathartic. It
Mm-hmm.
allows that release, um, the production of endorphins,
Mm,
right? Victory, those happy chemicals that are released within our brain when we achieve something, right?
mm,
Um, through sport or when we use a new skill, it allows us to refine ourselves and um, recognize um, mastery, right?
mm-hmm.
So it helps tremendously in the sense where we are able to use the sport to not only reprogram individuals, I don't say reprogram like we're indoctrinating individuals, but to offer different insights,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
In a less direct and challenging format, right?
Mm,
It doesn't become talk therapy. It also allows us to um, connect while doing something, um, you might say a little bit superficial, right?
mm,
And it acts as a conduit, right, to larger conversations, right?
mm. Yeah.
And then when you're offering sport, you're offering something, right? When you're giving
Mm,
sport, you're teaching a skill, you're offering something of value. So what
mm,
that does in turn is it allows the individual to see value in you. And
mm.
um, then the trust is built, right? I'm
Yeah.
giving you something now. I'm giving you access to the skill. And why that's insignificant is you could take the skill if you apply it in the right way. People will pay you a lot
Yeah.
of money to do this. Now,
Mm.
sport,
Okay.
I have my own personal reservations about sport. I don't think God really cares about sport when I arrive on you know, when I arrive after my life's over. I don't imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will care how many goals I scored or how well I played in championship matches. I don't think that's it. And I think we address sport in the
Yeah.
same
Mm-hmm.
regard. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily care how good my players are. I care about their approach to life and how they are as human beings and how
Yeah.
much they're dedicating to themselves. If it's through
Mm-hmm.
sport, then of course you need to get better and improve. But I care about the effort put in more so than the
Yeah.
statistics provided to me.
Mm. Yeah. So, I know what you do is of course I know you love what you do, but I believe there's not profession in this world that doesn't, overwhelm us, right? So, how do you personally stay grounded when the job gets really heavy or when the change is slow? Because not all kids learn at the same space, right? I mean, the same pace. So how do you stay grounded? How do you not quit?
Um, it's gonna sound like a terrible answer, but I don't think I'm programmed to quit.
Oh, okay.
Allah has
I've
created
heard
me.
that a lot.
Allah has created me in a fashion. I think
Okay.
you know this about me,
Hmm.
Khadijah. I've been designed a certain way, not to give up,
Hmm.
because there have been plenty of valid reasons in this dunya to do
Hmm.
so. So I don't think I've been designed that way. That doesn't mean I haven't considered. I think we've all considered at certain points. But also I'm ground like it's it's a cop out, but I'm grounded in faith. Um, and oftentimes I take a step back, when things might be a little bit difficult. And you ask yourself your questions, the certain questions, Um, and some of those questions are, um, this might be overwhelming, but why are you doing it? And then when you answer why you're doing it,
Hmm.
it reminds you to persevere, right? Uh,
Yeah.
we had a conversation the other day, you and I, Khadijah, and we were chatting about something, and you asked me, it's like, aren't you tired? Sure, sure. And I think you are too, but the answer to that might be sure, I might be tired. Um, but I ask myself, but I'm after something. I'm trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
Um, and number one, I can't stop. I don't think I can until I get to that point. I don't know if I have the opportunity to stop. I don't think I've been given
Wow.
that option. My mom used to say to us when we were younger. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but she used to say, Taylor, we're sharks. You can't stop swimming.
Sharks?
We're sharks, and sharks don't.
Yeah.
They could just like if you stop swimming, you die.
Wow.
And that stuck with me for a while. Now, however you want to look at that is how you want to look at it. But I always thought of myself as that. You can't stop swimming. But
Hmm.
more importantly than that, I have to sometimes when I sit back and you ask me, aren't you tired? And I said, maybe, but I'm after something. And I ask myself this question, would you be willing to do 30 more nights of this, 60 more nights of this, 100 more nights of this, if it meant that you achieve what you're after? And what I'm after is something I think is greater than myself. It's not for me, just for me. I think it's much greater than myself. I have certain brothers who I work for as well. And I understand I represent them. And how could I ever let my brothers down? So
Hmm.
when I remind myself of that, of what I'm trying to do, I they can then recenter myself and then persevere. And I don't want to act like I don't want to sound pretentious here, but again, when we remind ourselves not only of why we're doing this for, and then also when we sit down and begin to count the blessings that have come from this,
Hmm.
moments of joy. When you receive a text message from a youth, you might be tired from the day, but you receive a text message from a youth sharing a moment of success with you.
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah, Khadija, it's one of the most powerful moments when my daughter comes to me and brings to me her achievement. Alhamdulillah, like, how could I ever stop?
Hmm.
We have to understand what I'm serving, who I'm serving, why I'm doing this. And I think that
Yeah.
allows me to persevere. In addition to the fact that I don't think I know how to stop. And
Okay.
my mother told me I was a shark, and honestly, I believe it
Hmm.
for a
Wow.
positive sense.
That's very good. It's at least it's hopeful for the youth. It's
Yeah.
hopeful for parents, even communities to know that, okay, this mentor is not going to give up unless you choose to give up on yourself. But it's good that you have that spirit, driving your purpose, because I feel that that's exactly what's keeping you, helping you to stay grounded in purpose. Alhamdulillah.
But
So,
Khadija, sorry, and just one more thing, Khadija. Sorry, I'm being long-winded here, but Khadija,
yeah.
how privileged are we to be entrusted with the children of
Hmm.
individuals? These are the blessings from other parents.
Yeah.
How privileged are we to be entrusted with their children? These are the
Sacred.
most
Yeah.
prized possessions.
Yeah.
Who would I be if I did
Hmm.
not do my absolute best? Now, it's not to say that sometimes we need to stop. Sometimes some people need a break. But who am I if I were to not do my absolute best and act with integrity,
Hmm.
despite myself? No one cares if you're tired. No one cares if you're burnt out because
Yeah.
the job must be done, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
even you might have a valid reason for quitting, but that child doesn't matter to that child. What matters is their success. If I quit
Yeah.
on you before you're successful, I failed you. And
Hmm.
that has now become a selfish decision upon myself. What we're doing is much greater than myself. And I'm
Hmm.
hindering you from achieving because I've been given a certain privilege, a certain gift, but right?
Yeah.
And if I'm doing you a disservice, I'm doing my creator a disservice if
Hmm.
you're given a gift and I'm delaying that, I'm procrastinating with my gift,
Hmm.
right? So that's what I would say
Yeah.
as well.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that answer. So for a young boy listening today, of course, we were unable to go live and we're going to post this on YouTube, inshallah,
Sure.
and on our podcast channel. Well, for a young boy listening,
Mhm.
or even a man feeling lost in his identity, so what's one piece of advice you want to leave him with?
Oof. Um, your life has purpose
Hmm.
and has been written by a divine hand, the greatest of planners. And
Hmm.
I don't want you to underestimate the power A belief in God. That's what I'd say.
Wow.
Um, the rest you'll find it'll reveal itself. And I would say, yeah. Um, yeah, I'd say, like just your life has purpose. It's been written by something greater than you. It knows far more than you do. You might question what you're doing. You might question why. Um, but you have something to offer. You've been given a gift. And you
Mm,
might need to identify what that is.
yeah.
Um, but never underestimate the power of what has created you,
Mm,
right? You may not know exactly what you've been designed for, but you've been designed for a reason. And with that in mind, um, you know, that oh, sorry, what I'd say is also keep in mind that what Allah has designed for you may not be
mm,
able to be articulated in this world. There may not be a word for it yet.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So years ago, we didn't have AI. Now we have AI. We didn't even know what that was before,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I'd say is, again, your life has purpose. Never underestimate the purpose that has been written for you. That's what I'd say.
Wow. Thank you so much, Taylor, for this wonderful conversation. Even though we planned, but Allah told us His plan is different for us today, but we accept it in good faith. Alhamdulillah. We hope that people find this episode beneficial. And I will personally actually send a link to the mothers who have texted me who wanted to join in but could not. I will personally send it to them. So, and this conversation has been, nothing but transformational. And I ask Allah to continue to give you that strength because as a mom, I don't think I'm interested in your profession. I don't envy you at all, especially mom of four boys. It's exhausting. It's how do I put this? It's your a compulsory these kids are like the compulsory evils in your life. May Allah forgive me if I'm not supposed to use that word, but it's a case of you want to quit, but you can't. You just have to be there. That's why I said I don't envy you at all because it's a hard enough job for me being a mom, being a teacher, and sometimes I even want to quit, teaching. I just want to be away from, having to talk to youth, raise them, teach them all sorts, because I feel like it only takes someone who is truly passionate and someone who has empathy to be able to work with youth. It's not a job for the faint-hearted. And this is not me
Mhm.
exaggerating it. I'm sure you understand exactly where I'm coming from. Um, uh, when I say this, but I just I'm using this opportunity to thank you, to ask
Thank
Allah
you.
to strengthen you because I believe you need that strength,
Yeah.
the continuous
Well,
strength to
well,
I,
Khadija,
yeah,
one thing
yeah,
I'll say is,
okay.
Khadija,
Hmm.
I have two brothers who are part of ITG as well,
Okay.
who founded this with me, uh,
Okay.
Jacob McIsaac and Nabil Ahmed. And those two brothers, again, they reinforce me.
Did you
They're
say
also
Jacob
Jacob McIsaac, yeah.
is here with us, right?
Oh, is he? Right on.
I
Shout
think
out
there
to
is a Jacob in on
Well,
the
if that's
in
the
the
Jacob, then shout out to
okay.
him. But these are individuals who reinforce me as well, again, to
Okay.
allow me to stay grounded.
Mhm.
And I think it's not me alone who's doing this work.
Okay.
So
Mm,
I think it's important to understand I have a team.
mm,
These are the founders, these are individuals who founded this, but
mm.
um, it, we also have other staff, but it's not just me alone here, Khadija. So thank you. But also it's this goes beyond me. I have
Yeah.
brothers here who allow me to reinforce me and support me in this.
Mm.
And they contribute significantly.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, alhamdulillah, thank you for sharing that. And you've reminded us that, raising boys into men is not just something we hope for. It's actually an intentional act, of kind of, community, faith, and guidance. And I particularly will always root for your job, for your profession, for your passion, because I believe that every parent out there, especially if we live in this part of the world, and you feel that you're failing in that regard, I feel that you need the support of professional like yourself and Jacob and the rest
Mhm.
to reinforce the reason why these kids are here in the first place. And we are also tired of having our kids, be on the statistics like, oh, black boys are usually this or boys are usually that. Sometimes when they say things like, oh, is he a boy? Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised. We need to break that myth. We need to let people know that no, it's not always about being a boy or being a black boy. It's about
Mhm.
having that strong male role model in your life, which is what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And I apologize for the delay at the beginning also. It's usually it isn't like that with us, but Allah is the best of planners. Thank you for sharing your space and time with us. And thank you for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you've shared so far. We ask Allah to reward you abundantly. Make this count for you on the day that matters the most to you and not throw it back in your face. Ameen. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then if you have any question, you can tell me, or you can ask, or if you have to go, you can
No,
also let me know. But I'm going to
Jazakallah.